Hello everyone and welcome to the Divephoria podcast. I have taken Dracos' seat as captain of the ship. No, you are captain of the ship. No, but Dracos is the captain that opens up, and then you're the captain of the ship, and I've taken both jobs.
You've taken both jobs, one of the seats, you're fully protected.
So Kobe can just leave?
Yeah, I'm the captain now. Get off the ship, Kobe, get off the ship! We're one crewmate down. No, come back. The podcast is available on
Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor.
There we go. Okay, he had it all on his screen, so I knew exactly what to say.
No, I didn't read it at all. It's in my brain.
Oh, it's in your brain?
Yeah.
Oh my God, he just knows. Dude, Worlds was hella exciting.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying that this was the most hype group
Nice
stage
use of
ever.
hella, by the way. That's not a...
Well, I'm doing my two NA casters now,
yeah.
so I gotta get
You're just
hella
a good
in
old
there.
Cali boy.
Yeah. What is the other words? It's like some NA words. What is it like?
That's all you need.
That's it?
You're good.
Okay, cool.
Now you're NorCal. There's a
NorCal?
difference between
Is that a thing?
SoCal and
Oh
NorCal.
yeah, SoCal and NorCal.
Hell is a good word, though.
It is.
But yeah, it was a banger, man. There was... Honestly, the groups ended up being way more exciting than expected. We actually got pretty lucky, I think, on a number of days to make the final day really exciting when it could have been boring. I mean, you look at Group A. If Group A had FPX just slamming, that group would have been a snooze fest. If Fnatic didn't win, if Fnatic didn't win against RNG to start their day would have been really boring. Group D, first ever all 3-3 tie, four-way tie.
Yeah.
All the groups ended up being actually really damn exciting.
Let's start with Group A then, because I on my
it's the first
pick'ems.
letter of the alphabet.
Yeah, exactly. But I on my pick'ems had what did I have? I had Damon first, FPX for second. What did you have on your pick'ems?
I had Cloud9 out.
Did you have a second?
Woo! Yep.
Did you have Cloud9 out as well?
No.
Oh my God, non-believer alert.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's like you have to decide, do you want to do the for fun pick'ems, where you just put your region through, or do you want to do the ones that you actually believe?
I didn't think it was for fun, though. When
I don't believe
the first
you.
podcast.
Yeah. Did you say on the first podcast?
Yeah,
I remember you said that you actually predicted
All of them.
C9 to get out.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, Kobe. But C9 smashed their way through the tiebreakers. FPX 0-4 on the day. What do we think?
I mean, we own the LPL. That's what I think.
Is that it?
Yeah, LCS is definitively better than the LPL. Is my real takeaway here.
Yeah.
FPX absolutely
LPL
flopped.
killers.
The crazy thing to me about FPX is everyone's tier lists for like best player in the world had Doinby.
yeah.
And no fault to Doinby, but like after that tournament, top 5, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it was the biggest collapse we've ever seen at Worlds. Like pre-tournament expectations to result. This is like the biggest differential ever, right? Some people talk about EDG in the past and some of their flops, but I think this is so monumental of a collapse.
True.
To go 0-4 second week as a team that a lot of people had as a pick to win Worlds. This was a number of people's favorite to win the entire thing. A lot of people thought that they were going to beat out Dom1 in the groups, and it's just so crazy to see how much worse they played than they did in the LPL. Because like I watched a decent bit of LPL regular season, and it just seemed like you're watching two different teams. Like Doinby, you would be hard pressed to find like a 6 games over the course of the entire year that he played as bad as the 6 games in this. And it wasn't just like that he was playing horrible or anything, but he was amazing in LPL summer. He's just like hard smurfing every game, and the team as a whole just looked very pedestrian.
Well, I mean, I think the big difference was especially a lot of teams expecting all these, classic mid lane roams from him and countering all of them. You know, so many of the plays were either pressured on mid first, and so he didn't get as much time as usual, or when like the Galio one up to the top side, people immediately go up there and they counter it, right? So
yeah. Also, I saw something. People were telling me that on the Chinese forums there was a big problem with Tian at Worlds, mainly because he wasn't even supposed to play because he's really injured. He's got like a really bad body state. His wrists aren't in a great shape. So Tian wasn't healthy enough to play the tournament, but he had to. So I kind of feel bad for FPX. So I'll give Tian the benefit of the doubt, who I think was underperforming heavily in the finals and at Worlds. I think he was really out of it. Nuguri as well looked completely out of it. He was playing these top laners, his team was never really coming top as much as they should have, especially on the champions he was playing. And then he just fell so far behind. Apart from that one game against Rogue, I think it was, he was playing Jace.
he also for Tien, I remember after the Worlds that they won, he had a lot of nerve issues. And he really had a hard time with all the pressure too. So those two things combined with, being at Worlds again, I can definitely see it.
It also just felt like they had kind of a bad read on the meta bit. I mean, I still feel like J4 is such a bait pick, and that was 3 of their 6 games was Jarvan jungle. It never really felt like it was panning out for a lot of these teams. There was some weird build stuff going on, like the Abyssal Mask Malzahar game was super questionable for me. There was definitely we had some 40% crit IE builds. We had some
those are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of LCK AD carries.
Yep.
So that's not even LPL blame. But the Jarvan one, I always thought was interesting because everyone just starts flaming Jarvan as a champion overall. It's actually the champion is in a very good spot. Also has an extremely high win rate in solo queue, in high rated ELO. But
ELO?
A lot of
ELO. I've never heard anyone say ELO. No, exactly.
Well, Elo, you're technically supposed to say Elo because it's a guy's name. It's his last name. The one who invented the system.
Really?
Yes.
What? His last name was Elo?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a GIF thing again.
But everybody usually says ELO.
Yeah. Everyone just says Elo. Yeah.
Or actually, I'm not. My accent's not good for pronouncing his name, but his name sounds like Elo or something like that. But it's not an acronym. It's actually his name.
I didn't know that.
That's the whole difference. But most people
for teaching me. Today I learned. Oh, that's crazy.
What was I talking about again?
What were you talking about? You were talking about
J4's high win rate.
Yeah, high win rate.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anyways, it comes down to pretty simple. Like a lot of the J4 picks were also picked into carries. Like, oh wow, they have an Ezreal and some mobile mid lane carry. And you're like, we're picking J4. Yeah, or you're not even picking J4 with like Galio or Rumble or something like that. Some of them did have synergies for the champion, but if you're picking it without synergies, then it's going to lose a lot of that power that you expect it to have.
I also think part of the problem was also picking it with losing lanes, right? Because it's farms more slowly than some of the other meta junglers. It doesn't seem like it scales as well as some of these other junglers as well. So if you're not getting stuff done early, to me, it didn't really have as much value. And in a number of the games, people are picking J4 with losing lanes, and their mid gets pushed in, the jungle's invading them, warding them out. You know where Jarvan is everywhere. And then the team just backs off on that side of the map, and like Xin Zhao or whoever else is the opponent is farming faster and seems to have more value in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, and his EQ is so much more dodgeable than many of the other junglers' abilities. Yeah. And so many of these fights, then you're just a Jarvan there, whacking him with your spear. Like, okay, your passive does 1 hit of damage, and then you're just an auto attacker.
Yeah, Jarvan's 1v1 is pretty poor, especially into champs like Lee Sin. You kind of lose. And I remember the old school Jarvan meta was picked into like Sejuani and stuff like this, and Olaf. And what you would do is do like buff into buff on their side and split the map all the time. But no one really did that because it's like a full clear meta into Crab, right? And if you do that, then you can cross map with Prios or whatever. So it was a weird champion. But then FPX started defaulting to Viego, which was TN's like most played champ of the year. I think he had like an 90% win rate on that champ after 14, 15 games. So they quickly realized the problem that FPX had was, oh, there goes your headphones. I think the problem that FPX actually had was the transition time from their first round robin to the second round robin. Because if you have a bad read and you have 1 day break to fix it before you're playing again, that really hurts you. Whereas a team like Mad Lions, right, they had 4 days to scrim, watch everyone play meta champs on stage, and then like come to a decision. So maybe if FPX had more time, then they might have been able to turn it around, but again, they're in the same boat as everyone else in that group. But them particularly with the bad meta read could have helped them. But with the health issues and things like this, that team didn't look like the FPX we expected.
Worlds is competitive, okay?
Yep.
You have to be at your top shape. Yeah, everybody's dealing with all these different factors and all these different, excuses, and all the, the Western teams keep talking about how much they have to catch up and then get as much scrim time as they want, or visas this or that. But it just goes to show you have so few games in group stage at Worlds. You have to perform under pressure. You have to perform in a timely manner, and they just didn't.
And on the other end of the spectrum was
meanwhile Cloud9 did. I thought you were gonna
no. I mean,
ready for the Cloud9 transition. I love how you were with the pyro the whole time, like Cloud9.
Well, I also realized that on the podcast, I don't think I did put Cloud9 out until the pick'ems, and I came to my senses later when I put my pick'ems. Yeah.
See, I told you. He just did the NA Hopium pick'ems. It's a fraudulent prediction.
It's not fraudulent. It is Hopium, but it's not fraudulent. Well, also, TL was so close to getting out. That was so... we're going to have to...
You're jumping too far ahead here, Kobe. We're talking Group A. Damwon, I want to talk about them a bit because they did not disappoint whatsoever, right? Everyone thought it was going to be FPX and Damwon, two of the tournament favorites. And as favorites kind of started like falling down throughout the weeks, it was Damwon that was just looking stronger and stronger by comparison.
Old reliable over here.
Yeah, I mean, they 6-0 the group. They absolutely slammed FPX when they played them. They looked very dominant really across the board. They had a close-ish game here or there. Cloud9 had one really long one against them, but it never really felt like they were in danger of losing. And I felt like as FPX started playing worse, as EDG had a rougher group, like a lot of the tournament favorites, people started to go, oh, is Damwon just the best?
If I play devil's advocate here and actually pose you a question of saying, okay, Damwon went 6-0. FPX was very weak, we'll say, because Rogue and C9 were kind of not bodying them, but they were beating them, right? And then Rogue and C9 were duking it out. Would you assume Damwon is looking stronger than people might expect because of the strength of their group at the end of Worlds versus the start of Worlds? And if we put Damwon up against a team like T1 or EDG with maybe a harder-ish group or Mad Lions or RNG, do you think they would struggle at all, or will they just be as dominant as they were?
I mean, I think that they might struggle a bit more, especially if you have like EDG in their group or something, and EDG's playing better. Because I do think FPX collapsed, but I still think that they come away looking at the best. And it's really hard for me to rank like a T1 or whatever above Damwon, just because Damwon has just destroyed the LCK for the last three splits so hard that it really feels difficult. Even watching good form from T1 to like believe that T1 could beat Damwon. It just feels
I don't think so at all. Because FPX did collapse, but they were getting hard outplayed on a lot of these plays. So I think Damwon deserves their ranking at number one.
Agreed.
And the other thing that's interesting to me is from what I had heard, FPX was super slamming everyone in scrims. So it wasn't as though they came into this and just were like absolute shit team and then tanked out in groups as everyone expected. Even while the scrims were going on, and after week one, they actually did all right. Week one, they only lost to Damwon. People were telling me, FPX is insane. They just slam you in scrim every single time. They just will blast you. So yes, like Tien is having health issues. I'm sure that was a factor. But to me, it absolutely just felt like an underperformance, and it felt like Cloud9 and Rogue, I think, kind of like rose to the occasion on that final day and played some really, really good games. Because those are two teams, like both Cloud9 and Rogue, I think are somewhat inconsistent, but their highs are incredibly high, and it did feel like they were able to kind of hit some high highs and take down a team that was a tournament favorite.
This is why I think too many people are taking away from the teams that beat FPX by saying, "Oh yeah, these are the worst games they've played all year." I think a lot of them were forced errors.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Rogue versus C9 tiebreaker, which went on for so long that game. C9 coming out on top.
I was sweating.
I think everyone was sweating in the West. It was kind of neck and neck, though. I just think that C9 had so much more playmaking. You could see, even though they made mistakes, Rogue could never really find anything on the map despite getting the kills. And then C9 eventually took the game. Perks having his happy little accidents, but then soloing the game kind of when I think it was like the most important dragon spawn. I can't remember if it was Elder or the Soul. Then he just one-shots Odo Amne.
The LeBlanc are back to feed Inspired.
I remember he said on Twitter he was trying to control the clone to trigger Inspired.
We were talking about it, and I was like, you don't control your clone with R anymore, because you even still thought that it was with R.
Yeah, I thought it was like because I don't play LeBlanc. I thought you still.
And I was like, that's what Perks did. He hit R.
The old LeBlanc was R, right?
Yeah,
because you would use it on purpose. You would actually just press the button, but then I think the way you control it now is like Alt right click. You can move around with it.
I mean, you can change the key binding, but I have control.
Same thing as with Daisy as well. You can like ult and then press R to move him around. But Perks did it twice. There was one where he went over the wall and then went back and died, and the second one was when he went forwards in mid and then triggered his
There was more than two. There was a number. There was the bot lane tier 2 one as well, where he walked past the turret, started hitting them, and then distorted forward into their Perks.
Then he also wins them the game, though.
He
also wins them the game, okay?
And it was an amazing game. It's just really funny because it was just like he did 40-something% of the team's damage. It was absolute Smurf performance. He absolutely was the biggest reason that they won that game. He played incredible.
Yeah.
But also, if you hadn't seen the game and someone clipped out like the 4 worst moments from Perks, you would be like,
he's a secret agent.
Yeah, people were literally spamming like, he was EU the whole time. He never left us, like he had some of the worst plays of the whole event in that game, but he also carried that game.
I think it would be really easy to clip out, especially the return to clone spot one, and have a pop up. You know, if the YouTube video, you have a pop up of like ring, ring, ring. You know, and you see like a bank account flash up or something, and then he immediately takes it back. It's like
check PayPal.
Oopsies! I was trying to control the clone.
No, but I think this group was a huge achievement for the West. I would say, like Rogue and C9 having to duke out for a second seed in that group.
It was the group of death.
The group of death.
They made it out.
And one of the Western teams made it out. I think that was a huge achievement.
Yeah, it's really exciting for NA. I mean, it's interesting. You know, a lot of people obviously crediting Perks, but I do think that in the second round robin, Blabber had an incredible set of games. Fudge had a good set of games. I think that Cloud9 did step up as a team, which was important. And for me, it just really felt very meaningful that Blabber had a good set of games, because I do feel like everyone has just been absolutely shitting on him because you know, the whole all the crab stuff at MSI, and really kind of looking at him as like a trash jungler internationally. And yes, he does have some really bad moments.
He had a few happy little accents as well, didn't he?
Even in this one, in the first round robin, when he brings Yumi in against the TF, they invade the red buff.
The top dive as well.
There's some silly ones, but that Lilia game, he hard carried that game.
He did.
And let me finish, Kobe. And it's
not
back off.
It's just
every time I try and move a finger, it's like sit.
Well, you start talking. It's just one of those things where it felt like people actually got to see what we see in NA, right? Because he is one of the most talented North American players we've seen in a lot of years. He has won, you know, MVPs. He has absolutely dominated, and he's in a group with 2 world champions and the LEC MVP, and he had a hell of a day. And I just thought it was really important for like his career growth and for his confidence, because I do think if you are constantly just kind of like beat down internationally, it does affect you mentally.
And the last thing I want to say on this group, something funny I saw yesterday. So Damwon do these vlogs every like week for like their behind the scenes stuff, right? And they went to the shoot behind the scenes where Riot takes all the hero shots, and they were with FPX Damwon, right? So this is before the group stage started, and Khan and Nuguri were right next to each other, and Riot was filming like Nuguri standing in the middle and Damwon like circling him with Khan, you know, to make some kind of like drama. The camera cuts. The vlog's still going. You know what they do? Khan lies on the floor and he's like got his belly sticking out, and Beryl and stuff's rubbing it. Nuguri comes along and just starts rubbing his belly, saying, "You have such a nice belly." You expect there to be some drama between the two, you know, from swapping each other's teams, but no, they're just rubbing each other's bellies and having a good time. So behind the scenes,
just a couple of bros rubbing
they're
some
just
bellies.
bros behind the scenes. So yeah, that was really funny to watch.
I always rub the homies' bellies for good luck.
For good luck. But then going on to Group B, NA had almost like a bittersweet group there, I think, with 100 Thieves getting knocked out early, but then beating EDG, which I think was a really huge achievement for them.
It re-emphasizes one of the points that we always bring up is the confidence, playing with confidence on the world stage versus these best team in the world. Yeah. So we do have an interview, though.
Yep, exactly. Before we jump in, we have an interview here with Zven. Thank you, Laura, for that. And the interview was done during the last day before Team Liquid was actually eliminated.
Zven, thank you for joining me after the group stage of Worlds 2021. How has it been since the second round robin? Any take on your success on the last day?
It was kind of roller coaster of emotions of a day, because 2 and 4 isn't actually good enough to make it out of groups unless the stars align, and FPX went 0-4, and they did. So it was a wild day. Not gonna lie, I didn't think it was gonna happen when we lost to Damwon. I was very happy that we still have a tiebreaker to play. It was a crazy day. I thought that we would not make it out of this group after the first 3 games.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion around the LPL, especially and their failure in the second group, in the second week. How do you explain that when it comes to the read of the meta? Because it feels like the LCK is doing much better. In NA, you're also doing very good, regardless of the fact that 100 Thieves didn't make it out. The fact that they were able to take down EDG, I think, says a lot. So far, TL is also doing good. The LEC, not so much. Who has the best read on the meta right now, according to you?
I actually think that the meta read is fairly even overall. I think that everyone plays the same champions. I think it's just the play has been much better from LCK. They just play better. Damwon mostly. I think the other teams aren't looking amazing. T1 looks good as well, but I think just Damwon looks like they're a level ahead of everyone else. So I think we have a good meta read, and so does most of the other teams in groups. I think that there's not been too many games that have been lost in draft. Even now, I thought Mad Lions had a bad draft against TL, but they still won the game. So I think it's clear sign that meta read isn't as important as the actual play, and Mad Lions play better, so they won. So I think Damwon is just playing better than everyone else.
All right. Yeah. Well, we'll discuss the favorites of the tournament later, but more about the meta read and everything. We saw a huge diversity of champions, I want to say, thus far at Worlds. Would you say that there's an optimal way to play and draft, or can you rely on comfort and just do it with your style?
I mean, I do think there is some sort of meta. Like there's not that many bot-lane champs right now. It feels like it's every game it's Aphelios versus MF versus Lucian. That's like the 3 champs that played every single game in bot-lane right now. There's Yuumi for supports. Nami's played with Lucian every game it can be. Bryce LeBlanc, TF, etc. is played a lot. But I do think there's also a lot of room for comfort picks. Like Viego's coming back now for some of the teams. Graves top is being played, and everyone plays the meta. Plus some people play Draven, some people play like I don't know, Viego jungle, and I think there's room for comfort as well. And I think that this meta is very flexible, but there's still some champions that are just better than others. That's why we see TF and Yuumi every game when they're open, right? So.
Yeah, when you look at the bans, especially right now, it's Irelia, TF, Lucian, a lot of Yuumi also. But the champion came back in the recent drafts. We saw that at the beginning of group stage, teams were picking Nautilus into Yuumi as an answer. Then the champion disappeared. Then it came back again with a Lulu against it. What's your take on Yuumi, how strong it is, especially when you're playing from the red side? Because it feels like it's a must ban unless you're going to have an answer for it. And how strong are the answers we had so far?
I think RNG did a Yuumi TF trade where they picked TF on red side into the Yuumi first pick, and then they create like a winning bot lane because they can't pick into Yuumi. Then they have TF mid, and then they have a top laner, the last picks on red side. So they have 2 winning side lanes and TF who can roam. So they try to make the game very fast paced and accelerated. And RNG, actually, I can't remember who won. I think they won that game. The PSG game, did they actually win that game? They're playing against Yuumi, but I think that strategy can work where you win early games super hard and you have a huge goal lead, and then they had a soul condition at 23 minutes. They lost the soul team fight, but that kind of comp can work, and we've seen that before. I think Half-Life did the same thing as well, where they played the Draven Pike balling against Yuumi, and they tried to make the game very snowbally. But I think it's just a much harder concept to execute than to just play Yuumi and just farm for the game, and then you put Yuumi on Gwen or LeBlanc or Irelia or Talon or Lee Sin, some sort of fed bruiser champ that just carries the whole game for you. So I think the thing with Yuumi is that it's too hard to win against it compared to how easy it is to play. That's why I think a lot of teams just ban Yuumi on red side.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have the champion absent from the draft than it's such a stupid champion if you ask me. Last question for you, Zven. We were waiting for the Group D to be decided, but we know that so far you may face either T1 or RNG. Any thoughts on these teams? And what did you think of this team from what the games they've played?
I actually thought we would face EDG instead of T1 in that group. I thought EDG looked better until last day. But I think T1's looking very methodical, very clean, as they almost always are. I hope that we're drawing a team from the Group D. I hope that we draw, whoever wins, LNG, Genji, Mad, TL. I don't even know who wins this group at this point, but I hope whoever we draw is from that group. Otherwise, I would rather have RNG than T1. I think T1 looks like the best team you could face. I think Damwon from groups is the by far best team so far, but I just hope we don't draw T1. And then I don't care if it's RNG or Group D, but I have a preference for Group D. I think that it'll be fun playing against either Mad Lions or TL if they get first place somehow, but I think it's going to be Genji, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sven, and good luck on quarterfinals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, very much for the interview. Thank you, Sven, as well. And it's interesting to hear his thoughts on the meta.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's different ways you can approach it depending on your team. I think we were having a discussion on the desk, I believe, where it's like you can try and play the meta, but if you're playing the meta at a poor state and you're playing comfort at a good state, it's better to play comfort at a good state because you'll always just find more success, I think.
Yeah, I think that's always true, for every meta.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is worth shouting out also in that group, Hans Sama had an incredible run for Rogue. Like, he was outstanding, I think. And the sole reason in some of those games that they were winning.
This guy almost solo carried so many games, especially on MF. Like, his side lanes are losing. What does he do? He just like bases, runs to top, ganks top, kills him, takes top tower for his side laner, bases, runs mid, catches the wave. Like, this guy was, in his team fights was great, and lane was great as well. But like the plays he was making around the map to slow the game down for his team were just great.
I had a highlight package put together of him of just that one day. say, if you remember bottom lane, where he's got Jhin ult from this side against the big rock wall, and then Jace on the other side, and he's dodging the Jhin ults and the shock blast at the same time, and then he flashes the long part of the wall, which some people mess up as well, gets the right position, and walks away from it. I think with them actually.
He was waiting for his W as well to get extra move speed to make sure he can get away from the Jace with no flash.
Exactly. That was really funny.
I was just like,
but I will say that they griefed that from the other side, because that was FPX, right? And Notary could have just pushed him into the Jhin ults, but he just stood on the other side waiting. So Hans played it perfectly though. That was pretty sick.
I was for sure dead, by the way.
He made them look like fools. He actually just made them look like fools.
My man Hans, I'm excited for him next year. I think there was so many expectations about him being like one of the best ADs in Europe, and I'm glad he got to show it.
Yeah, he's played really well internationally for a lot of years. Even back to Misfits days and stuff. Group B, T1 comes out in first, EDG second. Obviously, 100 Thieves went 3-3, and DFM winless.
100 Thieves did T1 a little bit of a favor there to stop any kind of like tiebreaker happening. They just made sure T1 would get the first seed. You saw the video where T1 sees them winning and they're like screaming behind the backstage, like, yeah, we don't have to play a tiebreaker. That was lovely to see. But yeah, it was like bittersweet for me, I think.
Not only are we the LPL killers, but we're also the best friends of LCK. It's been true for a long time. Like we had that All-Stars where it was LCK and NA together, and we won the entire thing. So
maybe you could send them, some presents or something for Matt, because they've got like they're in the middle of like 3 LCK teams. So if you could,
Roger that.
help us out a bit. You've got the other one in Gen G, right, in the quarters. So yeah, LCK.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty interesting group. I think the biggest surprise was probably the turnaround from T1 in second week. I think they look way better in the second week. They look very, very clean compared to the first time around. Almost all the LCK teams did. I think besides that, like I was at least happy that T1 had their final game be impressive, because to me it was like the bare minimum was you have to beat DFM twice, right? Like as like NA expectations, you want to beat them twice, and then you're hoping to steal a couple of games off of T1 or EDG and somehow sneak out of this group. But it did feel like long odds, and their previous games, both their games against T1 and their previous game against EDG were like really disappointing to watch. Especially the last day, their game against T1, they had like, I think that was like the Malphite game and Leona and stuff. They had like all this hard engage, and they just like never ulted until the game was basically over. And then it was this really poor engage where the game just ended off of it. So it was so disappointing watching those games where it's like, wow, they have this great draft. They have all this hard engage. They never even try. They just do that kind of like classic play to not lose instead of playing to win. So coming off of that, I was actually just really happy that they were able to take down EDG and show, hey, okay, yes, they weren't good enough to get out of this group, but this is a team when they are playing their style and when they are playing at their best, they can at least compete.
I don't know if we cut it because we did 2 transitions with the interview, but I was talking about that day being just the clearest picture of bringing up this topic that we always talk about of playing with confidence against the best teams in the world. Some people have to turn off nameplates. Everybody has their own thing to try and not get in their head about who you're playing when you're playing against literally Faker. and these
you meme around, it's like, I guess every minute is Faker. Like, I'm just getting dove, and then actually press tab. Oh wait, it is Faker.
Wait, shit. No, it's just so clear. And FBI had his interview where he talked about it too with Lore, talking about his confidence issues and the pressure on stage. And I just really think with the year that 100 Thieves have had, this organization has been an exceptional year for them. Absolutely huge. And then getting this, you feel like you do need that experience, if the world's experience for the pressure cooker, all the meta changes so quickly, the intensity of best of ones, group stage, every single play you make matters. That type of thing is going to do a lot for them next year. But man, it is always this feeling in the pit of your chest when you see them play with confidence and that well versus EDG after it's already eliminated. Now I feel like they'll be stronger next year though.
They needed just like that one extra push against T1. I think like just you were talking about, I think Sunday had kind of a poor game, I want to say, because like top tower was dying and then he tries to defend it, goes in, dies, closer goes in, dies as well, and they just dropped so much gold, and then mid they just kind of let the game slip out of their hands. I will say FBI and Huhi just I think they had a good tournament. I think their 2v2 bots, especially in lane, were quite impressive in that group, specifically against T1 EDG bot lane.
If you like those ones, they've got better ones.
Yeah, except for the one game, it was like I think it was against T1, right, where T1 was running double exhaust. I can't remember if it was T1 or EDG, but they were playing Lucian Nami, and FBI just like insta-sprinted it before they were even level 3.
I think it was probably against T1 because I remember the EDG game he was playing MF.
It was T1 because T1 had Poppy and Owner had like seen Closer on a ward. Closer's coming down. Owner gets there first.
Yeah.
So Trundle's pushed out and FBI just like dashed in, cleanses the first exhaust, but they're playing double exhaust and just immediately dies. And he was level 2 or whatever. So they don't even have all the skills for Nami, which like generally that lane, it was against Aphelios Lulu. So like generally you have to at least get 3 before you can start playing a little bit more aggressive. And that was one that felt like that was the only winning lane they had drafted for in that game. And that death was just like, oh, they lost.
So that one was 100% vision discrepancy because the reason he forces that is the last minute tower is dying and the opponents are moving over towards Tribush where they have Closer coming down. But because T1 had warded the red, they knew Closer was there. And so they turn around the pincer. But that's the reason he dashes in there knowing it, because he thinks he's trying to force them into the 3v2 with the gank coming, and they weren't tracking Owner. So that one, it wasn't like a mistake, except for if you take
he even
into
said he ran it down himself that game. Like he was very critical of himself in it. Like I do think it was a mistake playing it that aggressively when you're playing against double exhaust. If you dash in like point blank like that, you were going to get blasted.
The only mistake is not tracking Owner because they know that he's on that side of the map. If you do that and he's not there and it's just Trundle gank, then you still win. But yeah, if you liked their play in groups already, that wasn't even the best for the bottom lane.
Jungle roll just stops the 2v2 from happening. But I wonder if the roster will stay together for next year. I hope they do, right? Obviously, they've got a good top lane sub that did really well in...
I mean, they won the LCS, so
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if they're going to
their
make...
top lane sub was doing fantastic in Europe, right? Some days been in the 100 for a long time. But Tenacity. But he's like the rock, I think, some days. So I'm excited to see them next year. But talking about other teams, I think DFM, first LGL team in groups, right? I think this is just already a massive achievement. Any win they could find. Solo kill. Dude, Aria had an insane game. That one against T1.
I hit this whole tournament.
Yeah, no, the whole tournament, I think he was playing pretty good. There was a few hiccups here and there, but yeah, the Zoe game, I think it was Zoe into Faker, gets the level 3 dive, solo kill. DFM, I think, had an impressive run into groups. Of course, they have the 3 Koreans. They finally got their 3 core members when I think it was their jungler who got the visa or whatever it was, so that they could get their support in.
Yep, so they got gang.
And in MSI, we didn't really see the real DFM. Now we have still a lot to work on, I think, just because obviously the region is weaker, but I still think groups is a huge achievement.
And honestly, 100 Thieves was lucky to win that second game against them. That one came down to that base race where they like punted them into the fountain laser and stuff. Like that was
the mirror and stuff.
Exactly, right. So like that was not a one-sided affair. So yeah, they went 0-6, but they did have at least, and especially against T1 EDG, they had some good early games. They obviously couldn't compete, as the game got longer.
Yeah, they had that one against EDG, I think,
Steel
as
had
well,
the Talon game where he was everywhere.
Yeah, against EDG, I think it was. They had like 5 kills in the early game, and they chased him into topside jungle. I think they were playing Poppy top. They had a good early game. Faker solo kills, the base race, everything was pretty close for DFM.
Yeah, both teams that got out though gonna be fearsome. I think we should move it along pretty quickly because we have so much to cover though. Did we have another? Are we playing the other interview?
We do. We have an interview with FBI here. This one was done at the end of their Worlds run.
FBI, thank you for joining me for this interview for Divephoria. I want to talk about your run overall, starting from training when you arrived in Iceland. Tell me about scrims, how it went, and scrims versus the results you had on stage.
Yeah, coming into Iceland, obviously we had a bit of a visa issue with Closer, which kind of sucked, but we got right into scrims when we got into Iceland, and I'll say we had pretty mixed results versus most teams. There was one team that really destroyed us a lot in scrims, but it was actually kind of a nice experience. Like, it wasn't nice at the time getting destroyed, but I feel like we learned a lot actually from those games, and that team was really strong. Yeah.
Would you be able to say which team it was now?
Am I able to? I don't know. Yeah, probably. Yeah. It was like Hanwha Life. I think that they're actually a really, really strong team, especially their bot lane and mid. I feel like kind of on like another level from the other scrim opponents that we faced. And it was a really good experience. I'm a big fan of Deft, and I feel like I learned a lot in those scrims.
Well, what did you learn by facing these players, Deft, but also Gumayushi, Viper also today and during the group stage?
Honestly, on stage, I feel like it's harder to gain stuff because we only played one game. And some of the games were a bit weird, especially the first game versus T1. I kind of just sprinted it down. So there wasn't really too much to learn, but I can kind of feel that they are both really, really strong bot lanes.
There's a lot of discussion right now when it comes to the format at Worlds, especially being just double round robin, when people would like to see maybe 3 games played. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think obviously I would have preferred more games, so we would have had a better chance. But yeah, I don't know about the logistics and stuff, but as a player, I always want to play more games on the world stage, obviously. So yeah, I'm all for that kind of change, but yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
Oh, I can imagine. We'll see maybe if things change one day. There's also a big discussion when it comes to the West versus Asian teams right now, especially Chinese team and Korean teams and EU and NA together. Would you say, how would you explain the results that we have? Because after the first round robin, everything seemed doomed for Europe and NA, but I mean with the run from Cloud9 and also your results today against EDG, I don't know what to make of this. Do you think the gap is getting bigger or teams actually are performing better now?
I don't really think the gap is as big as people say. At the end of the day, like a best of one format can't really tell you too much about the strength of the teams. I do think the Eastern teams are definitely stronger than the Western teams, but it's not like an astronomical gap. And I think given the COVID situation, I don't think many teams were able to really like boot camp. So that might have played a big factor because I feel like you learn a lot from screwing Eastern teams, and we weren't given that kind of luxury this time around. And I think that might have made like a pretty significant difference. But they're definitely stronger, but not as unbeatable as people think. Yeah.
And now when it comes to your run at Worlds, we will see you in the LCS next year. I hope we will see you at Worlds next year as well. Anything that you learned that's going to help you a lot into your personal development, FBI?
Yeah, for sure. I think I learned a lot, honestly, during this trip. Just how to play lane matchups, how to stabilize lane matchups. And I feel like consistency is a big issue for me. So I really want to work on that before the next time I hopefully make Worlds.
And you will be ready for sure. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, FBI. And it's interesting to hear about HLE and scrims, because I know Nisqy was also mentioning that they were way better than people were expecting. And I've heard this from a few people that HLE is being underrated. Even some of the LCK teams were saying they think HLE is being underrated.
Yeah, I mean, they have got Deft, who was also like dominating bot lane last Worlds, I heard, in scrims, and then Chovy in scrims. I like that FBI actually said it. You know, it's like, can I say it? Yeah, screw it. You know,
He's like, what do we got to lose now?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, we're out anyway. So.
We're out of here. Peace.
That's really cool.
But it's due to the rise of this team through just the very end of LCK. This team was 8th place. And then it was just their run to get here at Worlds where Def starts popping off and like all of a sudden, you know, all these memes about you know, the rest of the team and Chovy and blah 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 and all that stuff is from the majority of the season. And then just when they need it to qualify for Worlds, bottom lane starts popping off. And then here in groups, we even had games where Willer was.
Yeah, I think Willer definitely had a few good games.
Morgan definitely still has had the same ones that people flame him for, but the team overall is just on such a meteoric rise. I feel like the scrim stuff also adds to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think that they've all played a lot better in the second week, so it'll be interesting.
I mean, they almost beat RNG, right? Which is a huge achievement. When everyone kind of thought that RNG, especially myself, would.
You said they were going to win.
I think RNG. I still do believe RNG will win Worlds, but that group stage, second half of group stage, seems like the LPL teams, all of them, just flopped. EDG in a sense, RNG as well, just kind of losing games here and there, forcing tiebreakers for first seed. But I still think RNG is the strongest team in that group 100%. I mean, I think Xiaohu had fantastic performances. I can't wait, if it does happen in the finals, see Xiaohu versus Khan, the rematch from MSI. RNG obviously taking that one. But that group was...
That's not happening.
That group
They're
was...
on Cloud9 side of the
No, it's Cloud9. Perks versus Gen G and RNG. We'll talk about that later because that's actually super interesting to me. 100%. But the sad thing about that group is just Fnatic. I still stand the opinion that if they had Upset and Hylissang, Fnatic would get out of that group because the whole team just collapsed from that. But yeah, Bean stepped up, did his job, but I think it was no Upset performance, right? Because Fnatic is just such a bot-centric team, and you take away their bot laner, it's like, well, now we have to play top side. We have like a couple days of scrims. Ooh,
I actually want to play the interview now. Liner. Can we play the interview now? Because... It's a really good reaction.
Sure, we do have an interview here. This one's from Nisqy, and again, this one was at the end of their Worlds run.
Nisqy, thank you for joining me. I'm sad that it didn't go the way you wanted at Worlds, but what a turnover from the first game to the last games. How do you explain the shift that it's been within the team that allowed you to play more freely today and in the second round, Robin?
I think we just went like we had no pressure, kind of. Like it was already a doomed situation from our first week and just from everything that happened. So we just tried to have fun, and I think that helped a lot, to be honest, because I think you play better when you have fun. And for a lot of us, that's what made the difference today.
Right, and it showed, especially in that last game, you were having a lot of fun despite the loss. But I want to talk about the team as a whole and playstyle, because as I told Yamato earlier in the day, throughout the whole year you were playing. I mean, Upset had a big role in Fnatic's success. Not to discredit anyone, but I mean, you were playing mostly also for bot side. Bringing in a rookie, having to rearrange everything and the forces you would play through, especially with the meta at Worlds, which was not centered around bot lane also. How did you adapt to that in the drafts and in the playstyle, given the short time that you had to do so?
I mean, it was pretty tough because we didn't have that many scrims like we'd been. So we weren't sure what would actually work for us, because before we would kind of just pick strong champs for bot and then roaming mids kind of thing, and then we'd just abuse bot laners. But then when the situation happened, we just didn't know what would work for us anymore, so we're kind of lost. Also, we didn't really scrim before, so it was confusing. But towards the end, I think we just agreed to just pick strong champions and just play them like we wanted, kind of, and not like have necessarily a team plan, I guess, on like to make top ahead or bot ahead. We just kind of all played, and I mean, it was pretty tough. So
you made the best out of it in the end. Quick words about being as a teammate, because wow, this man, the way how he adapted, the way he fit with the team, and what he displayed on stage also against Gala and against Deft. What's your take on him as a teammate and the improvements he had over the course of the group stage?
I think he's actually a really good player. I actually didn't expect him to be this good of a replacement for Upset, but I feel like he actually filled in pretty well. I feel like if we had more time with Bean, it would be actually better, and we'd actually probably make it out of groups, is my opinion, but sadly we didn't do it. And I hope we see him in the LEC next year, because I think he's pretty good.
I agree. Let's hope he gets fixed up. What about you, Nisqy? You played tons of new champs at Worlds. Your playstyle was more aggressive, I want to say, but it's a work you've been doing throughout the course of the LEC also. And I want to ask, did you grow as a player in-game, but also outside the game with having to deal with this situation?
I'd say a bit, yes. I feel like I had to accept the world situation, and then before, like during spring, we had issues as well, and then in summer I came back pretty strong. And then we went to Worlds and it didn't go well. So I feel like I'm just growing and growing. I feel like my play style will probably change next year again, depending, of course, with who I play and all that. But I don't know. I feel like I'm growing more and more, and I'm getting more confidence every single time I play in an international stage. And hopefully next year will be better.
It shows really. More about EU as a whole, the West as a whole, actually, because we had a poor first week, but it feels like things got better during the second week when you think of Cloud9, Rogue also, even you guys today, what you did against RNG. What's your take on the West this time at Worlds compared to the unbeatable LPL and LCK teams, because they look damn strong?
I mean, actually, I had high hopes for Mad. But I feel like they're struggling. Had, yes.
Okay.
I had a lot of high hopes for Mad, but they've been struggling a bit, which is not really I guess them. I don't know. Maybe it's too much pressure or they have issues, but I hope they do better tomorrow. I think they play. But then, of course, Rogue didn't make it, sadly. But I was really hopeful for Mad, but I feel like now it's a bit lost. But I feel like if they make it out of groups, they'll probably go far still. So hopefully they make it out of groups tomorrow, and I'm glad seeing them make it out of groups at least. So.
Yeah, your ex-teammates. That's really cool to see.
Ex-teammates, yeah.
Last question for you, Nisqy. Favorite region to win the whole tournament and favorite team, and why is it Damwon?
I mean, who I want to win roles? I mean, I wish it was an EU team, but it's probably not likely. If I had to bet or to just choose someone, it'd be probably Damwon or HLE, to be honest. I actually think they're a really good team. Surprisingly, I didn't think they would be that good. And I feel like they're even better than RNG, and I think their Tiebreaker is being played right now. So, I think HLE or Damwon are my bets.
All right. Well, thank you for all these insights. Thank you for the answers, Nisqy. We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
year. And back to you guys at Divephoria.
Thank you, Laura, for the interview, and thank you, Nisqy, as well. It's exactly what you're saying, right? They when you have a change that is taking away your kind of defining player, right? Because they played towards upset. Nisqy's even saying, basically, we picked strong bot and mid champ second roam, and that's our play style. And now you have a guy who I think Beam played damn well. I expected him to get absolutely trashed because this is a guy who's never even played an LEC game, and now he's playing Worlds out of the blue without any
Against
prep.
Gala and Deft.
Yeah, exactly. So I expected him to get absolutely trashed. I thought he played well, but yeah, he's not upset, and you have to try to change your play style. And like Nisqy says, the play style that they ended on was essentially having no play style. He says, we just decided we're going to pick strong champs and just play the game.
Yeah, they loaded in and they're like, oh, we got a 6 solo queue team here. Everybody's really good. Let's just get
Let's
in
just
there.
invade. Support just leaves lane. We'll wait for team fights and stuff. Yeah, but it sucks. It's like RNG. Take away Xiaohu or something, or take away like someone like strongest in a way player because you play for them specifically, right? You play for a bot lane. You play to get upset first tower, unlock on the map, get the herald first, have bot prio. All these things. All of it's gone, and now you're just kind of lost. The only kind of remnants we saw of the old Fnatic was Adam just sacking his lane and running mid and just ganking mid non-stop, which worked sometimes. Like in their first game against Hamalife, they actually killed Chovy. But sometimes he's just standing there and it's like, okay, we're going back to top soon, right?
Yeah, I mean, the situation's not. It sucks for everybody, Sucks for Upset, sucks for Fnatic, Sucks. There's no way about it. Anytime you have a problem like this, it's going to feel bad.
The irony of it is we were the first episode of Divephoria. We were like so hyped for Upset Hilly versus Gala and Ming, dude. Like bot lane is going to be so stacked. But yeah, saddening for Fnatic. They got one win. They almost turned around, right? They beat the RNG and everyone's like, the miracle run week 2 Fnatic.
I mean, even at least that made the last day exciting, because if they had lost that first game against RNG, then it was like the group was already decided, so it would have got really boring. It didn't end up working out for them, but I do think they still have some things to be proud of. Obviously, it is going to be a really disappointing run, especially given the fact that they got, I think, a really good group, right? You had fourth seed LCK, which everyone was looking at. Maybe this has changed a little bit now with scrims and the information that everyone thinks Hanwha Life is actually really good now. But, it looked like the clear weakest LCK team. Then it was just RNG and PSG. And you only had to beat one of those is kind of how people, I think, were thinking about this coming into it. So, Nisqy even felt like, hey, if we had more practice with Bean, maybe we could have made it out of this group. This was definitely a group that Fnatic could have gotten out of, but sometimes these things happen internationally where people have to play with a sub, or there's some sort of a health issue or a family issue, as there was in this case, and you kind of got to roll with the punches, and Fnatic did it as well as they could.
And I have to say, props to Pete, who released the behind the scenes of Fnatic, just showing unfiltered footage of kind of what they were like. Nisqy's breaking down crying, Yamato is as well, and everyone's just kind of really, really sad. Hylissang's just kind of slumped in his chair. It's sad, but it captures the emotion of esports, I think, and the ups and downs of the roller coaster, from the high highs of making it to Worlds, and Yamato with the speeches, and Upset being so happy, to the low lows of just getting knocked out and everyone's just kind of sad.
I mean, your whole year as a pro player is distilled down to this.
Yep.
You get your couple of weeks of groups, and if you're out after that, you're just left feeling so empty, because they build everything for this, especially these teams that always have their sights set on the international competition.
I mean, I think it's really, really brutal, for pro gamers, and that I like that they showed it, because it is kind of the reality is that your identity kind of gets distilled down into what your results are, right? Because your whole life is just scrimming and playing and practicing and living League of Legends, and you're working towards this goal for an entire year. And I always felt this if I lost at BlizzCon or whatever, just the idea that it's well, what was the point of this year, right? I just wasted a whole year, and I'm sure that the Fnatic members really are feeling that right now. So heart definitely goes out to them when you grind this hard, feel like you're going to get out, and something that you can't control happens, and now you're done.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? As a pro player, you wake up, you have meetings, you eat, you play the game, and then you stop playing the game after scrims, and you play the game some more or watch some VODs.
It's your whole life.
And then you go to bed, and you're doing that for 8-9 months. You arrive at Worlds, and then it's just
disaster.
That's it. Is that it? It's over? Now I have to just wait 3 months to do it all again and just keep doing this
just
non-stop.
for a chance to then compete at Worlds again. It's not even a guarantee, right? You have to get the whole way there.
Brutal lifestyle.
Next group.
Let's
Let's
go to some happiness. Let's get some Euphoria happiness. Let's talk about Mad Lions. Let's go to a happy topic, because they made it out. And I'm so happy Mad Lions made it out. But now they're against that one.
Yeah, I'm glad that we got another Western team out. Might have preferred TL.
Nope.
Just throwing it out there.
Come on, you got one, we get one. It's only
fair,
fair.
it's fair,
I
yeah.
even said on, I think it was on Countdown with Dash after the first round robin. We were doing Countdown. I was like, look, Dash, we'll give you Group A. Yeah, Rogue will slot you in a win, and then you give us Group D. You slot this in a win, and we'll get 2 teams out. We got to work together here with these groups.
Yeah.
And it happened.
That's how you guys got LNG for first tiebreaker, and we got GEN for first tiebreaker.
It's been unlucky.
You know what? Deal.
But I will say that day went on for so
Oh
long.
my goodness.
Like from, I think Mad Gen G were the first teams to arrive, but I think each team had like 4 to 5 games in that day. And that day was like 10 hours long. The problem is you're just sitting there backstage.
It's way
just
longer too with call times, right? Because it's like we got picked up from the hotel at 9:30 a.m. or a little bit before that, and then I think I got back to the hotel at 10:30 or 11 at night.
Yeah, but for the players as well, it's like you're sitting there backstage watching 2 games or a game, waiting, and then all of a sudden you need to, like, let's say it's Mad Gen G, right? It's the most important game, day 1, first game of the day. I drink loads of coffee. I'm really feeling it. We lose, and I have to sit here for like 2 hours, like. And now I have to play again, you know?
You have to stay up here the whole day because every game that you're playing is elimination because the day is full of ties.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, another elimination. Oh, now a tiebreaker elimination. Oh, now another one elimination. And you're just like, you have to stay just peak
I think
performance.
Mac tweeted like, okay, we just finished, but we're going again in 3 minutes time. And it's like, now we have to draft, prep, who we're facing, what are we doing, what's the strat, what do we just play, what are they going to ban? Oh!
I have to say, you could tell, especially in the very final tiebreaker, that just everybody in that game
was tired.
Is so tired. That's like when you're grinding at night, Flex you or something with everybody, and someone's like, we can't end on a loss. We got to queue another one. We got to queue another one. And everyone's just like, okay, here we go again.
A lot of people were pointing towards it, right? Mac was tweeting about it. I think Armand was saying it. And then we saw, like, I think an interview with BDD, I think it was, where he was like, I don't know, I'm just so tired, man. Like, I don't know what's going on. We're just tired.
Yeah.
So that day went on for long for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. It is even field for everyone. And honestly, I thought Mad was done after game 1 of the day, right? Because they're 1-3 in groups, and it's like, oh, they need to get, not only did they need to, win out from there, but they needed some other things to happen and go their way for it to actually work out. Because, if LNG had won a game like earlier, that could have eliminated them as well. So it was a crazy
and then,
run.
TL beats Gen G, and then in the first round, then Mad has to win, and then TL has to win again, and Mad has to win again.
And even in one of the first of the LNG ones, they were behind early, and they had to rely on that Mad Lions comeback team fighting.
Was the humanoid LeBlanc, right? Where he just kept finding picks, and then they slowly came back in the game. Was it that game?
They're all the whole day is blurring together for me, but I remember they were backs against the walls and they were down early, but they kept on looking for those picks,
Yeah.
And they talked about it in all their interviews afterwards too, where they're just like, yeah, that's our start. We're never gonna give up. Like, we always know that. Yes, we're Mad Lions. Remember, we can rely on later.
That's how their LEC was. Like, I think Mad Lions, even though they won the split, they're the team with the most even gold throughout every game, right? So against bottom teams, top teams, whatever it is, the gold is either even or they're slightly behind the majority of the time, and then boom, it just blows open. They win a team fight or they get a soul, and then that's how they kind of end.
I mean, they showed a lot of resilience, especially in the tiebreaker against LNG. Like, that should have been an LNG win, and that's going to be one of those games that just like
dives.
Yeah, well,
I fell asleep straight up.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of those games that if you're LNG, you just replay over and over in your mind, because that was a one game.
Yeah.
All trolled so hard for the rest of that game. He got so far ahead, played the top dives well. Mad made some mistakes, and it's like, oh, it's GG. Kennen has like 5 kills. Carzzy was down, 3,000 or 4,000 gold in bot lane.
Oh my God, Light was so far ahead. Yeah.
This game looked so toast.
Because they kept putting numbers towards top side, I believe it was. And he was,
and all I kept taking like 1v3s
1v2s,
and stuff.
And he kept going 1 for 1 or 1 for 2.
Dude, this is waking me up. We've been slow to wake up today.
Yeah.
But even just remembering the game, I'm like shaking up, like jumping up and down. The Elder Dragon fight where everybody. So the Mad Lions, like, you guys get so many assassinations on the outside. By the way, Elyoya had trolled a lot of the early Kiana plays, but then him and Humanoid, they pick off 3 people on the outside. But Light is just so strong. He fights everyone off the Elder. But then they go back to the Elder Dragon. Nobody has Smite. They stun Light with the the Rakan. They get the charm knocked
And then
off
Humanoid bursts it.
Yeah, as he bursts it. And you're just like, oh my God, they did it.
They did 1.6k burst, and you did a QRW on LeBlanc and one-shot it. But I'll be honest, after the first 2 top dives, they were like, Caedrel, you need to cast the last game.
You went to sleep?
Yeah, they were like, Caedrel, you need to cast the last I just did 8 games of Analyst Desk, and they're like, you need to cast the last game. I was like, I can do it. I need to nap, though. Top dive happens, we're out. Then I woke up to the Elder Dragon. I was like, oh, what is going on, man?
It was a rotation of people dropping because Vedius was like, oh, I got to go record something in the morning. I'm out. And then they were like, Kobe, we just lost Azael for the countdown thing, so you have to fill in for countdown. And they're like, so you out
cool
now.
down, yeah.
Then
Caedrel duo cast for free.
And then I rotate over to the other thing.
We found a way to fix it all, you know, but we just
Our
had to
Rubik's Cube, yeah.
we just had to conserve energy, so I had to nap a bit, and then I woke up to a mad win, and all of a sudden, like, I don't need coffee, I don't need Red Bull. I was just screaming.
Yeah,
and
that game was that whole day was crazy. I'm sad for TL. The final game. Yeah, Jensen was faker on the last
Stole
day.
Baron.
He was actually smurfing so hard, but TL made so many mistakes in their final game.
That game looked
BDD
good,
also
though.
played out of his mind.
That game looked good because top looked so in favor of TL. Like Jace was like 2k gold up. It was like, wow, this is actually a great game state for Jace.
I just kind of feel like maybe they shouldn't have even killed the top tier 1. Like they used Herald on top tier 1, and then it just felt like he wasn't laning against Graves anymore and never really got anything from his vantage. He ended up actually falling behind in farm after he was like 40, 50 CS up. He was 2,000 gold up early. Alfari wasn't able to do anything with the lead whatsoever. Which was unfortunate, but I mean, tactical rocket jumping blind into the bush.
Malphite!
And just, a 0-man Malphite out there killing himself. The lazy recall from tactical mid, plus Santorin back to back. I mean, BDD was just headshotting everyone, and he deserves so much credit because he played an incredible game. Most people would never punish you for that, but it just shows why you need to have that discipline and not back in locations where you can get caught, right? You know, those back to back. Then when Jensen's splitting top on TF, Santorin was just way too far up in mid lane. They get picked there. Like everything started to really fall apart. And that was a winnable draft. Obviously, it's a winnable game potentially, but TL made too many errors and BDD had a hell of a game. So he was deservingly the winner.
Yeah. Kobe, your face. You look
sad.
He's making me sad.
Yeah, I mean, man, just...
It's a game of inches, isn't it? Tiebreakers on tiebreakers on best of ones. And
That was you saw nerves in tiebreakers. I felt like big time in both of them.
Yeah, I remember when Perks won the tiebreaker against Rogue. The comms were like, "It's choke city. Everyone's choking. Everyone's griefing. We're all choking, but we won."
I mean,
That was
that's
funny.
there can't be more pressure, right? It's world's elimination matches. It's so incredibly intense, but yeah, that's why things take over, and that's why I value comfort picks so much. You have BDD on his Zoe. This man is an iconic Zoe player, one of the best Zoe players in the entire world, and he just reverts to the normal spots where you're used to picking off people from all of your millions of Zoe games, that you're used to playing. Boom, finds him in the fog of war. Boom, headshot here, headshot there.
Oh my God, he almost hit me.
Yeah,
he was trying to headshot you.
That's why
Maybe he hit me. That's why I fell asleep, man. What the hell? Did it just travel from Iceland and hit me?
Damn, that would have been a really good tweet. That one would have popped off if I had
just take a picture of me asleep. BDD hit Caedrel.
With the game off. Oh, where'd this Zoe bubble come? He even slept Caedrel.
Tweets of people sleeping are so funny, but I always am like, I probably shouldn't take a picture of someone who's sleeping. Kobe was asleep on the taxi ride in, and I just wanted to do the selfie with Kobe asleep, being like, ready for the dive today.
Yeah, I want to take a picture of you sleeping now and do like the...
We just fake it now and just...
Yeah. But it's a good thing you have this protective shield. That's why.
Yeah, because I can't get hit by the sleeps.
Yeah, but all of that occurred within maybe a time span of 1 minute. Where he picks off by by this tower. Then he finds somebody in the fog of war in the jungle. Then he finds tactical recalling from the steps, which it's actually quicker when you have tier 2 boots to walk back. Yep. Just as a general rule, once you get to the steps, even if you have no boots, if you're inside the steps, faster to walk back. If you have upgraded boots, walk your ass back there, especially if you're playing BDD Zoe that just sniped 2 members in fog of war.
He had no vision as well, which was like
all 3 of them. Yeah, 3 in a row with no vision.
The pink one was so troll because not only did he face check a brush with no vision, he rocket jumped into it. Anyway, nerves were definitely on display, I think, for both the losing teams and tiebreakers. I think TL had some nerves, had some really bad plays. I think LNG as well. And this was such an exciting group, though. 3-3 for everyone across the board. Does make it the 4th time now TL has gone out at 3-3 in groups.
In the fourth worlds, on the fourth day or whatever it was.
This one, I don't think you can actually get closer to getting out and not getting out.
It's the first time they got a tiebreaker.
Because C9 was 2-4 with a tiebreaker.
But this one also, you Okay, never mind. It's not worth going down all.
But I will say, last
variations.
shout out I want to give is to Ale. I think that that man had a great tournament, especially that game against was it Birdle top lane when he's playing Fiora Irelia, and that guy is 5 CS. That
was
10.
when you queue up for flex queue with your bronze friend and they play against a challenger Fiora one trick.
Yeah, I'm sad
That
we
was
won't
that
see.
game.
I'm sad we won't see Ale. I mean, that man was like 1v2ing, 1v3ing on towers.
Oh, we'll see him again.
He's
I'm
really
sure.
going to
man's
want back
have
that
a
Kennen
long
game
career.
against Mad.
And also, Light was also smurfing. I feel bad for him too in LNG.
Light, I think, was maybe the most consistent player for them. He played very well. All right, on to the quarterfinals here. First
You're right,
matchup,
Kobe.
we got RNG versus EDG. A lot of people unhappy that it is an LPL kind of team kill there.
Yeah, and an LCK
but-
team kill on the other side as well.
Yeah, but should be exciting.
There's two ways of looking at it, though. Oh, dang, we have to team kill, but we guarantee move a team from our region on to semifinals. I feel like that's the angle that they should be looking at it from. With how the LPL teams have been doing, they better count their blessings that they're getting a guaranteed team through. Because I feel like everybody would be,
How beautiful would it be if we had like 3 NA teams, 3 EU teams, guaranteed semis as well? Maybe one day we'll get that where it's like the LCK and the LPL who have one team each in the semifinals, and we're the ones with
Next
seeds,
year,
man.
next year when
We're the
Worlds
ones
is in
with the
NA,
seeds. Yeah, maybe.
Rise of the West.
Yeah, but RNG EDG, who you got for that? Because I'm on the RNG train for that best of 5.
I do think that RNG. I am also slightly on RNG. I feel like EDG is just a little bit easier to attack, and the big thing is why I'm super excited for this matchup is that we didn't get to see it in summer playoffs because RNG got knocked out so early, and that really seemed like an aberration, that game. And then they're just like, down in the qualifier, and they just one shot, WE or whoever it was. We never actually got to see them play out, but even in the LPL playoffs, I would have thought I would have been RNG sided.
The only worry I have for RNG is they still have their mistakes of like getting ahead and then still overforcing and overplaying and dying. And I feel like the biggest favorable thing I think in this matchup is Xiaohu.
I thought you were going to say the only worry you have for RNG is crying because
TF ban now. Oh no!
In watching all of the RNG VODs to prep for this, that is the biggest standout thing. This is not just a Worlds thing where people have been making fun of crying. This is at every game. Even in LPL, they would put him on stuff like Lissandra, like Malzahar, and he would Malzahar ult an Olaf that literally already has Ragnarok on, and it's just running by, glowing.
God, you remember
actually
we watched-
glowing.
yeah.
And then he would have somewhere you're on this champion where your R is 80% of what you're going to provide to the team. And he would mess up Lissandra ults. He would mess up Malzahar ults.
I remember watching those games together. It was like 4 or 5 in a row that were just absolute stinker alts. Just like super griefing.
That
That
series,
word makes it sound so terrible. That was a stinker.
I literally, for one of the games, the only note was crying big liability.
Was that your notes for RNG?
that was my note for one of the games.
Oh, wow.
That was the whole thing.
No,
It
but
was like...
mid lane pool will be high contested, right? TF, Ryze, LeBlanc. I think these champs will be really high prio. Syndra as well will be debatable as to whether you want to give that up. Maybe give LeBlanc for Lissandra. This mid matchup's kind of interesting because I think Scout had like an amazing finals, and he showed that like he can really 1v9 on that team, and he can really carry with champs like Ryze. Whereas Crying, more of a liability, needs his roaming mids.
And it's really cool because I have these two teams as very lopsided and very different sides of the map. Generally, even though EDG did show some 1-3-1 where they had Lucian top and they did some split pushing, so they showed a little bit of variation towards the end. It was so much more about bottom lane, about Viper. And I think we still probably all have him as best AD carry.
Yep.
Now that Hanselma's been eliminated.
Yeah, Viper Mako are
Hans.
just so goddamn good, right? And it is interesting. And it's also really hard to judge because, like you said, we didn't get to see them in playoffs. They only played one time in summer, right? RNG did win that, but it's very difficult to actually have much information on this matchup. I do think it's just going to be kind of split sides of the map, right? Where EDG likely are playing towards bot. RNG pretty much always do play towards top. They did some mixing up of that. Both teams, I think, did some, but largely that has been about the play style. And I don't know, like I kind of feel like mid is pretty advantaged towards EDG, and because of how this meta has felt, like it has felt top focused, but it's felt about playing through mid towards top. And like that is one thing that I do think kind of works in EDG's favor. If your bot is winning naturally 2v2, if you can have JJ playing through Scout, if that can be the X factor up towards top lane to help out Flandre, then maybe the meta is kind of like more favoring them, because it feels like everything starts mid and then goes to sides at this Worlds.
Yeah, and I also think if you put Gala on Ziggs, RNG's bot lane is saved a lot. We saw it especially against WE, and we saw it once this tournament. Him having Ziggs and playing topside is a fantastic thing, I think, for RNG to just unlock Ming.
One of the biggest, I think, saving graces why I gave the slight edge to RNG, when it is going to be lopsided, I feel like Gala is actually so good at playing the weak side for RNG. And so while Viper and Mako are so insane, and you should put a lot of resources into them, I think the bottom side for RNG is good, even with all the focus that they put towards Xiaohu. So it makes it hard to have that as like this complete win condition. I love that you bring up the Ziggs, because that was the other thing when we were
Ziggs,
doing our prep. There's so many LPL Ziggs where they have these kill combos, and it's not just leave for wave control
Like
and have your
sets, the RNG special and stuff like this. Yeah.
So
I think a lot will come down to draft. Like, how can you shut down Cryan's like small mid champ pool?
There's no way that EDG don't ban TF. There's no way.
Yeah, I think TF, Ziggs could be great bans for EDG. Maybe even investing top bans for Xiaohu, right? Because I mean, you can target top, you can target bot to get a winning matchup for EDG, you can target mid for a strong mid jungle, but what was that?
Google wants to talk to you.
Hello. No, I think draft will be so important. And I think EDG can target a few specifics. But yeah, I favor RNG.
It'll be really interesting. I mean,
Google, what champ do I ban against Cryan? Oh, TF.
Oh, what the hell? Google knows.
Flandre also has not played that much different stuff. But like, it's always hard to know. Is it like, oh, is that because you're not comfortable in things in the meta, or is that just because you haven't been pushed, right? And it's just been Graves and Jace for him so far. But those champs both are really strong and safe blinds right now.
My man Xiaohu can play Syndra top into Kennen. He knows his matchups. He's flexible.
Freaking love that game. That was so fun.
Yes.
Into the Kennen, you're like, oh my god, the outrange. But
so most teams will be like, hey, I can play Syndra top, you play Set mid or Renekton mid, and we'll just win top into this Kennen. Okay, mid laner goes top, wins lane. Xiaohu's like, no, I'm the Syndra.
I guarantee no other team at Worlds is ever gonna have the confidence to play a Syndra top type of thing.
That's because you have a guy with an international title as a mid laner, and he's your top.
Yeah. How sick is that?
And you know that they are committed to sending everybody up to the Syndra. There's no way they let Xiaohu out to dry. They always rotate all of their cooldowns. Bottom lane teleport, even mid lane teleport, jungle pressure. They're playing around when the opponents are going to attack Xiaohu, and they've honed that and they've really perfected that and a lot of these timings around, because they know the opponents are going to try and counter.
This is a really exciting match.
Yeah, it is really exciting. You guys are both on RNG side. I'm just going to go on EDG side just because I think it's scout diff. I think it's a scout diff. I think the meta has been so much about getting mid ahead, then moving elsewhere. And I do think EDG have the edge there. It's going to be a really exciting one, though. Could see it going either way. Next one on the docket here, we got Gen G, Cloud9. These two teams have some history. I mean, Cloud9 on their semifinal run knocked Gen G out of groups. Then one of the funniest tweets I've ever seen was, I don't know if you guys remember this tweet. Gen G, it was like something, I can't even remember what the context was, but Gen G tweeted to Cloud9 basically like, oh, imagine needing, Koreans to do anything at Worlds or whatever, right? And then Cloud9 just responds, imagine having 5 and getting knocked out of groups. and it was like the most owned I've ever seen a team get on social. It was so funny. It has like 30K likes Insta, just boom. So they've got some history, and I would love to see Cloud9 kind of continue that forward and take them down again.
The banter train hasn't ended, because if you watch C9 react to pulling Gen G, they're like, nice! And you watch the Gen G reacting to pulling C9, it's the same thing. And then I think it was Perk said while they're reacting, nice, we drew the worst mid laner in the tournament. I guess I'll 1v9.
It's funny about the double reaction thing, because that also happened in 2018. When they drew a free hit. I remember the video because it shows videos of both teams. And this is always going to be true. When you're perceived as one of the weakest teams, of course, you're like, oh my God, we have to get the weakest opponent. So the other team is also going to be like, yes, we also got the other weakest opponent. So everybody's cheering, woo, woo. It always makes for good memes because only one of them can win, and then you get to make fun of the other one.
This matchup is actually really close as well. We're casting it as well, so I'm super excited to cast it.
I'm so jealous.
We're jealous of casting the Cloud, not casting the Cloud9.
I'm so jealous.
I think this series might actually go to 5 games. Who would you favorite? You just repping Cloud9, of course? Of course. There's no point. I don't even have to ask. I guess it's just my opinion, really, isn't it? Because I know you both want C9 to win.
I obviously want C9 to win. I do think that, like, while people are getting really excited and being like, oh my God, free path to finals. Like, we could do it.
Not free.
And I'm just like, yeah, I could see a world in which Cloud9 gets to World Finals, but I could also see a world where we just get slammed in quarters. So
But having those two extremes is better than just going against Damwon.
Of course it is. It's way better. I'm not saying that we got a bad draw. I'm just saying that people need to be realistic. Gen G could easily beat Cloud9 in the quarters. I think if it's like gun to my head, life on the line, I probably tip towards Gen G. But I do think that Cloud9 can beat them. My concerns with Cloud9 are the same that they've been all year long. It's just consistency. It's like,
True.
What are you going to look like in 5 games? If you go 5 straight games, if you're in a best of 5 and you throw away 2 games because of some like just stupid play, well, you're putting yourself at such a massive disadvantage, right? You really are making the other games that much higher pressure. You're going to have to play flawlessly because Cloud9 at their best, we know this from MSI, we know this from this Worlds, they can challenge any team in the world. That has not changed. It's just, can you string together 3 consistent games to actually take down Gen G? That's my biggest question.
Well, luckily for you, Azael, we've got the 3 keys to success for Cloud9 coming up right here, baby. Okay, first one is going to be leveraging the mid lane champion pool difference. And this one, as you said, Perkz even cited himself in the video as one of the biggest things. While BDD can rely on the strength of his Azir, of his Zoe, and everyone is afraid of his champions, those are not the champions that roam around the map as early or as frequently as Twisted Fate, as Ryze. So utilizing that as one of your biggest tools is number 1 of the first 3 things.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah. Number 2 is going to be, that Gen G almost always, they have had such a hard time changing their identity as a team. They're one of the easiest teams to categorize as stalling out later for these team fights where they have BDD and Ruler on these carries and they're able to win for late game. Cloud9, one of the biggest strengths in the most successful years of Cloud9 in spring, attacking and running over people early. So play to control the map early. The early neutral objectives, Rift Herald, I think should be
just running around the map, killing everyone.
Not even everywhere. I think a lot of focus should be on the Rift Herald play. Rift Herald play, you're looking at 7 to 8 minute setup. There are 3 ways to get Rift Herald. 1, you win the 3v3 on top side, outright. Great. That's the easiest one because then you have full top priority.
Yeah, top push,
the second one, bottom lane push priority. So then you can half roam up in the fog of war. If they commit, then you have the lead and you get there first. If they don't commit, then you just rotate back down so you don't give up too many minions on the pushback on your tower. Don't give up too many turret plates. Or you just full rotate and lane swap up there to make sure that you get it so you can get the Rift Herald and you start knocking down turrets.
I think even if C9's bot's getting pushed in, they can sack, right? So Vulcan can base on a wave pushed into the tower to match support tempo, and then AD can just catch the wave and run up as well. So there's still a world where they can do it to the losing bot.
Boom. That's part number 2. Number 3, play with confidence. Don't be afraid of some of these mistakes. Don't be afraid of these memes. The Crabber, C9 Crabber, has actually been beneficial at Worlds this year. It was so memeable at MSI, and yet they dominated. I forget which game it was, but they won that crab fight on bottom side and won the entire game in one of the crunch. That day.
I can't remember. I'd have to remember.
Anyways, don't be afraid of those memes to make mistakes. Play with confidence. You saw this with 100 Thieves. When all the
Cloud9
pressure
is never
off.
afraid. That's one thing I'll give them. Sometimes they should be, but they're never afraid.
Yeah, especially when they have setups around Dragon and Vulcan's like, let's just engage mid, man.
A small tack on one to this, I guess our 3 is like three part B point.
3 parts B.
3 part B.
Yeah.
Be cognizant though and track enemies because there are a lot of plays where Cloud9 charge in where they're not tracking enemy support or enemy jungle. You go over the back of red buff with a Yuumi on you, and surprise, the enemy mid laner is Twisted Fate and can teleport in, and all of the members are there and they kill you. So be confident and play with confidence, but remember to be cognizant and track, especially jungle support.
I will say I think Gen G is a very theoretical team. They're not super creative. They're not going to catch you off guard with like overloading bot or shadowing bot or forcing a 2v1 on your side lane and then double TPing to Nash and forcing it, or looking for crazy flanks or picks. I feel like they play by the book. We push out mid, we move top side, get division top side, match our top laner siege tier 2, which is good, right? It's good to get early snowballs and it's good to kind of progress the game without overextending and throwing the game. But Gen G are not going to overdive you. Then Gen G is going to meet you at the objective. If they get the objective, they're running away straight away. They're not going to really hard engage or chase you down if you make a mistake. So I think they won't punish C9 as hard as other teams might, like Damwon, and like chase you if C9 does make a mistake. But especially like they will slow the game down a lot. That last game against Mad Lions, I want to attribute that more to fatigue rather than anything else. Them just overgrouping and slowly not doing anything. I would say that's more fatigue because the day was long, but I still think that concept applies to most of their games.
My biggest question here is like, because I know Cloud9's style is very much to move away from bot, right? Is to get Vulcan out of lane and roam from bot. And the question is kind of like, is Ruler going to get too far ahead, right? And that has felt like one of the questions I think for Gen G versus pretty much all the teams is that sometimes you come out of these games and your bot has been fully abandoned. Ruler's 3,000-4,000 gold ahead because you're playing to actually move around the map, and Ruler is able to punish, or Gen G will go towards bot, zone your AD off towers. It's like, can you get enough elsewhere? And I'm really curious to see, is Cloud9's read going to be abandon ship on bot, get everything done elsewhere, hope Zven holds up, or are they going to try to put more resources into kind of like patching the ship, so to speak, and keeping Zven afloat in bot lane? Because I know that they don't want to normally play through bot.
And the thing is, I'm not scared of like, kill lanes coming out with early kills for them. So it's going to be close farm traded, I feel like, on bottom side of the map. Ruler's not going to go turbo aggressive and like solo them, get these 2v2 kills. I think they should be stable until you find your timers. And so that's why I put so much emphasis on the Rift Herald, so you can start knocking down those turrets, because Ruler and BDD, at some point, it's inevitable, they're going to get money. That's how Gen G plays. They're going to feed them a lot of money and be hard to play. But if you take down the towers and you start to take over the map, I think Cloud9 are also much better at executing 1-3-1 and split push.
Biggest thing is just play through mid, right? If you have playmaking mid, LeBlanc, anything like that, we saw Santorin and Jensen do it fantastically, how to play through mid to sides. I think if C9 applied that to a Gen G game when BDD is playing things like Azir, I think they can take over the map for sure in the early game.
Absolutely. It's going to be a really exciting one. I hope they can do it.
He sounds like a believer to me.
He does sound like a believer.
I predict C9 to win, yeah. I'll predict C9 to win. That's non-biased, non-anything. I genuinely think C9 will win that series. Yeah. I think they'll get to the semis against RNG, I expect. Where
and then that's
RNG
an easy 3-0 for Cloud9.
Yeah, but if C9 I think C9 actually have a realistic chance to World Finals, but that's the last thing I'll say.
Especially if they're against RNG, Perks has to pick LeBlanc just for the
or hover it at least.
The 2018 just mental warfare.
Yeah, just hover LeBlanc and then like hover champions that the RNG was playing and just keep meshing between the two.
He tweeted out, what should I get for my world skin? And I answered Renekton because he had the 0-6 Renekton game. But the real answer,
that Renekton game was so funny.
The real answer has to be LeBlanc, at least for me. Just because he's had so much internet.
I feel like I also really associate, like Silas and Akali and those kind of champions with them from like those kind of eras where it was all about flex picks. But
Silas for sure.
But 28, but the LeBlanc to me with his furthest international runs,
absolutely
already holds so much.
He's an incredible LeBlanc, and historically
mid pool is going to be contested in all these series. Like LeBlanc, Silas, TF, Rice, Syndra, all these trade-offs are going to be really high contested.
And I'm always so excited because there's always the development of the meta from play-ins to groups and then groups to knockouts, and seeing do people have stuff prepped? Like, are they going to let Yuumi through? Are they going to let TF through with a very specific plan to try to punish these picks that people are going to take it?
T1 would snatch Yuumi. I think they only got it once, and Owner and Keria looked unstoppable.
It was against DFM.
It was against DFM, to be fair, and Yuumi had it ups and downs, but I think Keria playing that champ, this guy plays anything, man. Predator, Thresh, Anivia support, Echo, Silas, Talia, you name it, he picks it. Camille.
He's so good. Yeah.
T1 versus HLE is our next matchup. So
mid lane, Faker versus Chovy, the rematch of the regional finals. Obviously T1 1-3-2. Those games were very back and forth. I think T1 had that series in the bag multiple times, but Hamalife kept scratching games out of nowhere. But this matchup is... I think Hamalife has grown a lot since that series. They've gotten a lot better. I think play-ins actually helped Hamalife a lot in just having more time to get better, which sounds very straightforward, but I think this team really needed that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do still favor, based on the Worlds form we've seen, I favor T1 pretty heavily. I still think that they have a much better top side of the map, and they like to play towards Kana and put a lot of resources into him. And I already think it's a 1v1. He probably should be winning. Morgan and Willer, I think, are just still kind of a liability at times. I do think that they've had some better games, absolutely, at Worlds. But in the first round robin, people were still absolutely memeing them for throwing games and like playing pretty poorly. So it's just kind of like one of those things where if you don't have consistency from some of your players, it's very difficult, I think, in BO5, especially a BO5 that could be, not in your favor. If you drop a game or two that you should win, it's really, really rough.
I am still a bit worried for Hanwha sometimes too, because as much as there have been games where it really feel like, they finally shed the Chovy and Friends memes, of all these different shapes and sizes. Then on the last day, they had multiple ones where Willer's getting caught out. He sees a gold card thrown at him in the air from his own bad positioning, just walking up in mid lane, by the way. Does not Viego ultimate until after the gold card lands. He already gets stuck. Like, this is a projectile flying through the air. You've got no ping. You have no excuse. Then he tries to ult after he's already been gold carded and chunked out, and he dies, and his ult is...
Who was the gold card from Crying?
Yeah, and I was just like...
The TF player.
Yeah, like, wait, just wake up, okay? And then we also had Vista and Def making mistakes as well. Yeah. And they had been such a critical part of the rise and the success of this team, and it not just being Chovy. So that gave me worries that they're not past all of the things that kept them down.
It was also really interesting in the first round robin. I actually felt like though Chovy was still laning really well, he was kind of struggling in the first round robin a bit. Like he had a really poor Silas game where I remember it was like 1-5, 0-5, something like that, where he would create lane advantages, but he was struggling to convert them. I do think in the second round robin, he did a much better job of that. He did. I mean, his game against Fnatic, when they're kind of shutting the Jorah on Fnatic, that LeBlanc game was insane. So these are stats, the top DPM games from Worlds so far. Second place was Humanoid on Victor, 954 DPM, which is like not shocking. Victor's really high DPM. It was like a 50-minute game.
But 900 is very good.
It's a ton.
Yeah, you're like,
number one though, 1345 DPM from Chovy on LeBlanc against that Fnatic game. He absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah.
And so that was a really impressive performance, and I do think that like not only was he still doing well in lane, but he was really able to actually convert on his advantages in the second round robin and looked much more comfortable. And he is going to be difficult to deal with.
What I will say, a standout player for me on T1 is Kana. I think he's been having a great tournament. I think Kana all year long was like this come top or I will die player, and he was playing things like Lucian nonstop and Jace. I think he's evolving into a great player. I think the Kennen game was fantastic, and I think that he can be more of a player where you can leave and play more towards bot side if you want. T1, what's been working for them has been playing top side, but there's these signs that he can also be a little bit more flexible, which he really hasn't shown that much in the past. So I'm having my eyes on top lane. I think that top matchup is actually really in favor of T1.
Yeah.
Hope they have the...
I think jungle is as well.
Let's go through it then. Top jungle, mid in favor of T1 or Hanwha Life?
Well, I think if there's anything, you could make the argument more for like mid maybe being in favor of Hanwha Life, right? I think Faker does a lot for his team, but like I favor top side pretty heavily for T1. I also think Keria is stronger. It's like you really, the only arguments to me is Chovy and Deft. And even then it's like
I take Guma over.
I think the argument is how long will the game go on? Because if Chovy's playing a 0 or whatever, or Faker's playing a 0, I think both these teams don't really want to play the game too fast paced, in my opinion, barring top side.
I feel like SKT is very willing to play.
The Herald stuff, they will really want to play fast. But like if you watch their finals against Damwon, they'll play Jinx Braum and they'll just chill and they'll wait for you to make mistakes against Damwon, and they'll maybe try to find games or wins.
But they also play
Genji, sorry.
They also play Leona plus whatever owner had, and those two forcing these engages. That's how they beat them first time around. But back to the top lane one, I was like, everyone's gonna have eyes up there and cameras up there too. Because if you remember the shot of Morgan Camille bottom lane CSing, flashing backwards, I think and I always
then miss the cannon. Otherwise, it would have been worth if you got the cannon.
I'm always trying to think of what it could have been, and the only thing I could come up with was that he thought he was trying to teleport to a play on the top side of the map. That's literally the only thing that makes any sense. But that's like, did he put his summoner spells backwards?
There's also a chance he was like maybe writing timers.
I've done that
where
I start typing at the same time as I press enter, and
whatever the Korean letters are.
While he's going for a...
I mean,
cannon.
It's not really an excuse.
Those are the two. Yeah,
it just seemed like
it's a happy little accent. Just nerves. And, crap.
All right, well, I'm going T1 for this one.
Yeah, T1.
Yeah. T1. All right. Next one I think is probably going to be, I'll be interested to hear your opinion. Damwon versus Mad. Everyone I think is looking at Damwon still as heavy favorites, but Mad obviously did have an incredible BO5 against them at MSI, which I think is giving some hope to LEC fans.
I think Damwon got better than they did at MSI. I think they're a lot better team. Khan is looking I think like probably next to Xiaohu, the best top laner in the tournament. I mean, he had a pentakill. You can play for top. This guy looks a lot more reliable than he used to be. It felt like the old Damwon of old was like Nuguri was the person you play for, and you play for Nuguri and you get ahead, and top side's great. And then Khan came in and he was like the tank player, right? It's like, I can play weak side, guys, you can leave me on an island. Bot lane was not functioning and Damwon slowly started to collapse, but now Khan is actually someone you can really play for, and you can he's showing signs of a really great carry player.
I think Graves being in the meta for top lane is so insanely good for him. It is a perfect champ. It's versatile where he can play when he has no pressure. He can also shove in, build up waves to dive when Showmaker and Canyon are ready on their timings. And I feel like since Showmaker and Canyon run this team, everything revolves around their timings. And everybody else just has to be ready. And so I think that type of wave control and safety is really important for both sides of the map.
I like that you brought up the meta because like top side is more favorable right now in the meta because of the Herald, right? Early push, early Herald, GGWP. Get top tower, unlock your mid or whatever you want to do, you know?
I like that.
From the Baal, shout out to the Baal, to GGWP. Rip all chat. No, but playing top side is much easier in the meta, right? Because you can get early heralds and then have your top move mid and pop the herald. But Khan's champion pool, it's like he plays Graves into Jax, wins, plays Jax into Graves, wins, and he plays Jace and Lucian as well, right? Yeah. So that's 4 champions that he can play already off the bat. I'm sure Camille is already up there as well, because in the finals, Camille was just a huge contest prior where Khan would just first pick it, right?
He can even whip out the Fiora.
He can whip out the Fiora. So in the current meta, I really favor like just Khan's champion pool over Amut for blind picks and counter picks or any side of real matchups.
And even just, I mean, he top gapped that whole group, right? like especially the Jax into Graves game against Odoamne.
Okay, I will say Graves got first blood. I think it was, did Graves get first blood? I believe it was. And then his top laner was just on an island the whole game. Was that game? I can't remember what it was. Anyway,
I don't know.
And there was a game where I think he got like first blood and top was already lost. But that game against Odoamne, when Odoamne is playing
that was against
Graves,
Cloud9.
Was that against Cloud9?
That was against Cloud9,
then the other
where
one
Blabber walked into the river and died level 1.
He was playing Graves into Fudge, I believe. That was a Wukong or Jax, I don't know. But then the other side, when Odo's playing Graves into Khan's Jax and he's getting solo killed, that's when I realized, like, multiple times. That's when I realized, like, that guy's a bit too good. Yeah.
Well, and his average CSD at 15 in the groups, 22 plus 22.5. His average goal difference at 1,500. Like he absolutely was just stomping their group. So like Armut, I think, team fights incredibly well, but his lane face has been his weakness pretty much all year long. I know that it got better in LEC playoffs, but definitely during the regular season, laning was not his strength. And I do think this is going to be such a big challenge for them. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, again, this is one of those things where it's like, it's such a clear advantage for Damwon. Do Mad try to, circumvent that by just like picking team fighters and ignoring the lane? Do they try to play towards it and try to, punish Khan with aggressive counter picks and with like roaming mid and try to dive him and try to punish him that way? Because it's really difficult. And Damwon is just such a uniquely hard team to play against, because if you craft this whole plan and you're like, all right, we got to stop Khan, all resources to get Armut in this game and stop Khan, well then guess what? They're good everywhere. So like they just kind of passively create advantages. If Elioe is over prioritizing going top, well, Canyon will farm your entire jungle and take every dragon, and that can get difficult too.
The typical way to try and attack them has always been through bottom side.
Yep.
Try and go through Ghost. And yet I think they quietly have been one of the parts that improved the most for Damwon. To me, I was so taken aback when they literally sat him, they benched him just to have Showmaker and Canyon switch roles.
Well, and he also needed a break, I think was my understanding.
Yeah. But even so, switching roles just to have him take a break. And then the team did fine. They were still positive. They were
Canyon's lane phase in mid was actually not bad.
They were like 7-3 with them swapped roles, and I was like, "Oh my good, my ego. I don't know if I could take that." But Ghost comes back, and the break is actually really good for him. He's looking extremely strong. He's even carried a couple games for them. So
he has had ups and downs, though, right? Against Rogue, he almost like lost him the game. So that's still their weak point, right? Yeah, Hans Div, best AD in the group. But Damon's obvious weak point is bot lane. And just talking about that's role swap thing. It's funny to me because I look at Owner's solo queue account. The last 20 games he's played at 1,000 LP. What is it? Mid lane. LeBlanc, Ryze, Azir, Owner's playing mid. Canyon's playing Aatrox, Jace every game. Like, feels like the Korean junglers just want to play solo lanes when they get bored.
This is a super tangent, but I've always thought that is such a good bonus for a lot of the players that play super high rated on KR ladder, a lot of them play multiple roles and play Phil.
Yeah.
It gives them just such a wider and better concept of the game, much like Caedrel himself. That's why how you got such a big brain, multiple roles. Yeah.
I think it's true, man. Like, especially for junglers, if you play some of the lanes, you have a much better understanding of the matchups and like how you can punish those matchups, what feels frustrating as a laner when a jungler does it to you, you know, good timings for ganks, when people are really vulnerable. Like that stuff I think can actually be really valuable.
Number one thing I learned from being a mid laner when I role swapped the jungler is Azir. Like obviously there's loads of things I learned about lane phases, but the one that triggered me the most was when I play Azir mid into like Ryze and I'm level 3 and I get ganked and I have to use WEQ away and I'm lost 70% of my mana. And I'm like, I'm full HP, but now I'm out of mana. So now I can't push and I can't TP back because then I'm going to lose the lane. So I'm just sitting there like, oh. So every time I pick Jarvan and the enemy team at Azir, I would always just run mid, EQ, laugh, and then run away. And I knew that mid was one.
Yeah, it gets rid of the part of your brain that all junglers are born with that says, just come to crab now.
just push, man. Who cares?
Why are you?
You're Maokai and Darius. Why aren't you pushing here?
Just push. You get prio in this lane. Yes, loses prio. You said you got prio, man. That's why I died on crap, man. You told me you had to push.
So, Caedrel, if Mad are to win, how do they do it?
3 keys to success.
Yeah, 3 keys
Three
to
keys
success.
to success for Matt. Stabilize top, number 1. Maybe find some engage support bot and don't actually prioritize Yumi as much. Maybe even giving Damwon Yumi could be a good exposure point and pick like Rel Leona and just drop the lane. That could be one thing. I think they have to play it risky if they want to win, like giving over things. Maybe picking... like choosing blue side as much as humanly possible to first pick TF or some kind of roaming mid like Ryze for humanoid, because he was playing Azir into Gen G, and I feel like Mad Lions were trying to target Gen G more than trying to assist themselves in a way, right? In that game he picked Azir, and then humanoid can't roam around the map, so now Yoya maybe a little bit lost. I mean, humanoid is a great Azir player, don't get me wrong, it's just the way the team functions. How do I see this series panning out? I think it's gonna be 3-0 for Damwon. My heart tells me that this could go to 5 games. The only way Mad wins this series, I think, is 3-2. And they just
the reverse sweep as well.
Reverse sweep, whatever it may be, it's just going to be 3-2, I think. And they have to adapt in best of 5s because that's what Mad Lions' strength is. I think that when you look at T1 and Korean teams in general, creativity is a little bit lackluster in best of 5 transitions, right? From early game plays, jungle pathings, and just champ priority. I think Mad Lions or the team will just throw a spanner in the works and just play something crazy to catch you off guard. They were the creators of Senna Wukong, right? So they're a very innovative team. So if they can come up with something random like Malphite games or something like this, then they might be able to catch them off guard.
I think the hardest puzzle for me to solve is the top lane, because when you earlier brought up the point about, oh man, yeah, and Khan's champ pool is so good into Armut. Actually, is there any top laner that has a more restricted champ pool than Armut? I feel like he is the most restricted champ pool.
The problem Armut has, it was like he had like the Jace, Wukong, Gnar,
Adam, I guess,
Narmut.
to be fair. Adam's
he
okay,
has his pocket picks. He had this like trifecta of champs, and then in playoffs he started playing GP, and everyone was like, "Oh wow, he can play other champs, right?" He had a great GP game. He lost, but he was doing really well. And then GP got changed, and everyone was like, "Oh well, there goes that champ that you just practiced. Now Kennen's meta, and now he has to practice Kennen, right?" And we never really saw his Camille. We saw his Irelia. Was quite lackluster. We haven't really seen his Fiora. He's been playing these things in solo queue, but he hasn't been able to transition them to stage. So from inside context of watching his games a lot during Worlds, he's playing them in solo queue, but I don't think he has the confidence to bring him out on stage yet because he doesn't know if it'll work.
Yeah, that to me is the biggest hang up. But he could surprise everybody. You can get the surprise factor that way if they all expect it one way and you've actually got the practice down.
Just bust out like Shen top and something like
Dude,
this.
Shen, I feel like is actually a pretty good top laner right now.
In the con, I think it could work maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of matchups that Shen's actually pretty solid into that no one is playing it. I was gonna say, like, I would be totally happy to see him play some Malphite and things like that. I actually think there is the risk of like the wave getting sacked and you getting dove early. You have to protect against that because Malphite can't contest the wave at all in like level 1 against Jace or whatever. But if you get through the early game against champions like Jace and Lucian and Graves and these types of champs, there are like so many comps these days at Worlds that are being drafted with incredibly low amounts of AP, or it's only like 1 burst AP, right? It's like a Zoe or a TF or whatever mid, and that's the only AP damage. And Mythics have enough MR where you just stack health and armor after that, and you're not really going to die to that person. You can still have a tremendous amount of value for the team fight without necessarily having to like compete in the lane.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is just Mad Lions are a very momentum-esque team. It's very common for them to lose first games of best of fives, right? Playoffs was a bit of an exception this time around, but throughout the last few years, losing game one is whatever. They kind of laugh it off. And I think having that comfort of not losing the game when you're out is really big for them. Adaptation will be huge. Maybe pulling out some crazy champions. You have two options, right? Do we pull out something like defensive, like Malphite for team fight, which has been our strength? Or do we actually try to just go into game one and match their lane phase, play Jason to Graves and see what happens? If we get smashed, we'll swap it up. You know, they probably have those kind of ideas going into it.
Yeah. Having the mentality and always being able to rely on, oh yeah, we're Mad Lions. Don't worry, we could just win a team fight still.
Dragon stacking.
We're still in it, baby.
It's going to be an exciting one. Dude, I'm casting this hyped. One, and I'm like, oh, it's probably not one favorite.
You're either getting a 3-0 and you're home in 60 minutes, or it's a 3-2 for Mad, and it's like the hypest best of 5 ever.
I've gotten to cast so many good EU quarters, like so many G2 quarters and stuff.
Did they always win?
Pretty much, yeah.
You're the man for the job.
I feel like I cast the Misfits SKT Misfits series back in the day. I cast G2 RNG. I've cast a lot of the really good runs over the years.
Oh my god!
So I've been really lucky to get to cast some fantastic European quarters, and I hope this one's going to be a banger. I think that's going to do it.
How does Dracos normally close us out? I can't remember on you. I've done like 25 Euphorias with him.
He was just closing
it. You were just doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, let me do it. No, sorry to interrupt you. I thought that was something we had to say. Like, check out this. You know.
I don't know.
Check out the casts. Me and Kobe are on C9 NG. Azael is with Medivedi.
Yep.
On Damon Mad Lions.
Exactly, yeah.
And then I'm on the desk, I think, and you're on the desk.
Semifinals will be back on Friday. So I am going to be really excited to see that.
Yep.
And it starts, I believe, 2 p.m. this time. I don't know what exactly the time is in Berlin. So it's 2 p.m. in
check
Berlin
out the socials,
time.
all of the socials.
Yep.
Caedrel Esports Kobe. Yeah, you got that name. And Azael Official. There it is.
There you go. Well, thank you.
Good job, Captain. Flawless.
And now, what was it you said? Beam me up, Scotty, or something? I'm out of here.
Perfect outro.